Hello, diplomats. I hope you're all doing good and finding yourselves safe wherever you are. Today, in this video, we are going to discuss a recent issue which has come up in news, which is contempt of court. So, what is contempt of court? Why is it in news? What are the other cases involved with contempt of court? And most importantly, what are its origins? Why, in first place, we have contempt of a court? And what exactly is the debate around contempt of court? Diplomats, today in this video, we are going to have a detailed understanding of why this principle exists, what is its importance, and most importantly, what are its constitutional and statutory backings. On that note, we shall continue with about this video in this way. So, what is contempt of court? So, before even trying to understand what is contempt of court, I think it is important to know what is contempt. The word contempt. The word contempt mean disgrace. The word contempt mean you do not necessarily agree with it. So the word contempt has a connotation in this particular case that there's a person called Prashant Bhushan. He is a lawyer and is also an activist. He commented on the Chief Justice of India while he was riding a bike. So this was the incident. So hence this entire row behind contempt of court has been in news. Now let's understand what exactly this contempt of a court is. It is actually a concept that seeks to protect judicial institutions from motivated attacks. So, when you say contempt of a court, that roughly means that if somebody is commenting, somebody is criticizing, or somebody is offering something which is absolutely unscientific, irrational, and unwarranted. So, to prevent such kind of activity, to prevent such kind of acts, we have a principle called contempt of court. So, what this does is contempt of court does not entertain unwarranted criticism. So, hence, as a legal mechanism, we have contempt of court to punish those lower the authority of the court. Now, this means what does this actually mean? What does this actually mean? We are going to deal in the coming part of the video. But however, the initiation of a contempt proceedings are done by Supreme Court of India on its own motion. So now we've understood what exactly is contempt. Contempt means bringing disgrace, and contempt of a court means a legal provision that seeks to protect the judiciary from disgrace committed by anybody. Similarly, now where does this come from? The contempt of a court as a concept origins in England. So, as most of the statutes, laws, principles, and some parts of our constitution are heavily borrowed from England and also other parts of and are also various other constitutions in the world. So, in this case, the contempt of a court concept is taken from England. So, how did it come? So, there is something called common law principle, and this seeks to protect the judicial power of the king. So, there is this king, there are a group of judges, and we have a principle to protect the judicial power of this king and also the judges. So, any disobedience to the king, to the judges, or obstruction of implementation of the directives or comments, if this happens, if any of this happens, then you can invoke this principle called contempt of court. So what happens? So any action that will show disrespect towards the king, towards the disobedience, so towards the judges, which tangibly proves that it amounts to disobedience, is called contempt of court, and it is punishable. So the underlying factor of this entire contempt of court is it is an offense and it is punishable. So now we've understood its historicity, we've understood its origins. Now, how does this concept has a lot of weight? Why are we discussing it so much? What is the significance behind it? It is significance because it is not just as a legal principle, it is not just as a principle that we borrowed from England, but this principle also has a very strong statutory and constitutional backing. How? So, in pre independence, before the independence, we had laws on contempt of court in India. In the constitution, in fact, in the fundamental rights, article 19, which guarantees freedom of expression and speech, the contempt of court was made one of the restrictions on freedom of expression and speech. Diplomats, we all have to understand that when it's a restriction given on Article 19, that itself shows the significance of contempt of court. And why, what are the clashes between this Article 19 and the transparency? We're going to discuss that towards the end of the video. So, and constitutional provisions. Article 129 of Indian Constitution gives the power to Supreme Court to punish contempt of court. Similarly, the same corresponding power is also bestowed upon high courts of the state by Article 215. So it clearly shows the legacy, the constitutional legacy, and also the constitutional backing that this particular concept has. Also, another important law we have about contempt of courts is Contempt of Courts Act 1971. This gives statutory backing to the very idea of this concept. So can we call anything as contempt? Can we call any activity as contempt? What are the kinds of contempt of court we have? Basically, we have two kinds of contempt of court. One is civil, the other one is criminal. So civil is fairly simple. Civil is fairly simple because of one reason. What does this civil contempt of court mean? It means somebody is willfully disobeying the court order. Somebody is breaching an undertaking. So somebody gives a order. The court gives an order and somebody does not obey to it. It simply means it's a civil contempt. Now, the second part of the contempt of the court in the entire controversy is about the criminal part. So, in the two varieties, the second variety is contempt of a court in criminal way. It's called criminal contempt of court. Now, what does this entail? It has basically three categories in that. One is words, either written or spoken, signs and actions, which tends to lower the authority of any court. This is a larger umbrella concept that we are trying to invoke this, that it could be words, it could be action, it could be it could be written. Written could be in terms of an article or in terms of a publish, in terms of a book, or it could be anything. It could be spoken. It could be you're giving a speech, or you're writing, or you're giving a talk, or you're writing a comment. So this is a variety in that. So it could be signs or actions too. In the second part is prejudice. Prejudice or interferes with any judicial proceedings. So now, before even trying to understand what this prejudice and interference is, we need to understand what prejudice is. What is prejudice? Prejudice is a concept or an understanding that you already have a preconceived notion about this XY person. Let's say I have a preconceived notion about a particular person belonging to a particular caste or religion or country or a tribe. That means before even trying to understand what exactly it is, which is more factual and rational and reasonable, I already developed a prejudice against this one particular X person. This means I have a prejudice. The same example applies in terms of judiciary too. You already have a prejudice about the court. You already have a preconceived notion about the functioning. And what happens with this prejudice? So this prejudice categorically leads to interfering in the judicial proceedings. So that is fatal for delivery of justice. So it clearly means this amounts to contempt of court, which is under criminal category. The third one is you interfering with and obstructs the administration of justice. So how are we going to categorize them? I mean, the judiciary has a lot of legroom to interpret this. So you are voluntarily obstructing the administration of justice, which is absolutely not entertained by the judiciary. So it could be, how do you do that? We do that by making allegations, by accusations, or by attributing some motives. Now, what is this attributing? So when there is an ex judge giving a Y judgment about a one particular case, the judgment is on, the judgment is given, it's already in the public domain. So what happens is there is this person who is engaging on baseless, unfair, unreasonable and irrational accusations, and they're trying to attribute some motives to that judgment. So this is a very tricky phase of contempt of court, is that somebody randomly coming and trying to give you an explanation which does not stand the truth. So in this case, this also will amount to contempt of court. Now, so apart from these things, apart from the things that we have discussed, why in first place we have contempt of court? What is the reason? We've understood the historical legacy of it. We've also understood what amounts to it, what are the kinds of contempt, and what are the clauses and varieties of the contempt, either in civil or in the criminal. But why should we have the contempt of court? Why should we invoke such a provision? It has three reasons. Fundamental reason is that court must be protected from tendentious attacks to lower its authority. So let's take an example of family. So in the family, your mother, your father, your sibling, and you're there. So when you want to discuss something, when you want to put your opinion about one particular decision taken in your family, there is a way you put that. There is a decorum that we establish as a family, which is absolutely very personal, or it's a collective decision of that particular entity. What do we do is there is certain authority that you give to one particular person or two group of people or the entire family. So whatever the decision comes or whatever the discussion comes, it has to happen in a way that doesn't disrespect anybody in that particular entity. Apply the same principle for the judiciary. What happens? That you do not attack the institution of judiciary with unwarranted reasoning that could lower its authority. Hence, we have contempt of court provision. Second is, what happens in this process when you are lowering the authority of a court, when you're lowering the authority of the judiciary, it will tarnish the public image. And what happens with the public image? Public image, public perception in democracy and on democratic functioning of institutions will have a huge impact if not taken in a right and fair way. Now, what does this mean? This means that when you throw allegation or when you throw accusation, which absolutely is driven by your own personal motive, which does not have any basis of any kind, it will tarnish the public image. And what happens when you tarnish the public image? What happens when you damage the public perception is it makes the citizenry lose its faith, its confidence, its trust in the institution. Hence, the contempt of court is necessary. Hence, the contempt of the court is invoked. So, in this three reasoning of trying not to lower the authority of the judiciary, to not to defame its public image and not to tarnish its democratic public perception, and most importantly, trying not to make the citizenry lose its faith on the functioning of the judiciary. These are the reasons why, in first place, we have contempt of court. So we've understood what is contempt of court, but we also think that there are certain problems and inadequacies in the way we interpret this. So now, to understand that better, we need to understand what exactly is not contempt of court. So we know what is contempt of court with the clauses that we have discussed, but now it's also important to know what does not paramounts to contempt of court. So in a democracy, whether it is judiciary, executive, the legislature, the way it functions might not satisfy everybody. It could be an X person belonging to X particular community. It could be Y person belonging to Y particular gender group. So in this case, what happens is you offer a criticism of the functioning of that institution. That is not contempt. But the way we offer that criticism has to be fair and accurate, reporting about the judicial proceedings. So what does not amounts to contempt of court is when you report fairly, when you report accurately, in a rational way of the judicial proceedings. That does not count as contempt of court. And two, any fair criticism based on merits of the judicial order after a case is heard and disposed of. So this clearly means we have a concept called checks and balances. Why do we have checks and balances? We have checks and balances to check the excess of one institute over the other. That means there is a check on excess functioning of an institution. To balance that, we have some systems in place. Similarly, when you have a criticism against, when you have criticism about the functioning of the judiciary, it is important that you understand the judicial order after a case is heard. It has to be first heard and then it has to be disposed. Only then we can come to a rational conclusion, or only then we can come to an accurate and fair understanding of the situation. So in these two cases, we clearly did that that does not amounts to contempt of a court. And next, so in order to give more importance to such kind of things, the act was amended in 2006 to introduce something called truth as valid defense. What does this mean? So we have an accusation saying that it is unfair, it is not accurate, hence it is contempt of court. In order to address this lacunae, we said truth as a valid defense. Now what does this mean? The truth as a valid defense clause means if it was based on public interest and it was invoked in a bona fide manner. So there is a certain systemic establishment of your criticism that you have to offer in a way that is prescribed. Because if we follow that particular principle and particular rule order, that will only help in effective functioning rather than trying to delegitimize the institution. Hence, truth as valid evidence does not amount to contempt of a court. So apart from Prashant Bhushan case, which is recently in news, hence that is the reason that we are discussing today the contempt of court, we also have a very famous case called Tehelka case in 2009, where this particular magazine has published about the functioning of judiciary. However, over 11 years period of time, we still haven't heard what exactly happened with the particular case, and the judgment is not yet out. So in order to understand the debate, the nuance of the debate is we have twin principles. One is freedom of expression and speech is guaranteed by the Constitution. As a citizen of this country, you have freedom of expression and speech, and we are here to express our criticism, our constructive criticism, in a way that will help the institutions to establish more transparency, to establish more accountability, so that that can help in better functioning of the institutions. And in democracy, freedom of expression and speech, if utilized properly, if utilized in reasonable way, which does not lead to any violence, which does not lead to any unwarranted acts that might question the very legitimacy of the state or of the institutions, is completely welcomed. In that case, the debate between freedom of expression and speech and transparency in terms of contempt of a court is widely discussed, and that's where the entire controversy surrounds. Now the second part is what exactly the criticism should be. What should it entail? What it entails, what it should not entail, and what is the modality of the critique is something that we all have agreed in the previous part of this lecture. Is one, it should be pronounced in a very fair manner, in an accurate manner, in a factual manner, and most importantly, in a polite manner and in a fair manner. So what we are doing is, now the question is about modality of critique. I'll give you an example. Let's say I and there is X person are indulging in a debate about a water bottle. So now the debate is it should surround about that particular water bottle. So this person and I should reason, should dialogue, and also discuss and put our viewpoints about this particular water bottle. He or she or I cannot indulge in their character assassination, getting into their personal lives, attacking them, or slandering, or doing any kind of propaganda about them. Because what does this mean? This means that your discussion is about that particular water bottle, so you're supposed to discuss about that. So that means your modality of the critique has to follow your modality of debate and engagement. It should be the same. In the similar way, if the court is not particularly functioning or not administering or not delivering the justice in XYZ manner, your criticism also should fall in the same modality of XYZ, in an absolutely respectable, in an absolutely polite and fair manner, so that not just the court but also the citizenry, the dual approach to functioning of democratic institutions happens in a respectful and also in a highly more democratic way. This is the larger context behind the contempt of court. So, friends, I hope you understood the contempt of court as a concept, its historical underpinnings, its statutory and legal backing, the types of contempt of court, and why the contempt of court is necessary, and most importantly, what does not amount to contempt of court, and also the debates between the contempt of court and the freedom of expression, and bringing in transparency in institutions. All the best, study well. Thank you.